Thank you, everybody, for coming to the College Football Betting with Aaron Torres YouTube channel. If you could do me a quick favor, see that little subscribe button at the bottom of the screen. Go ahead, click that subscribe button. It helps our channel grow. It helps our audience grow. I appreciate it more than you know, as we're talking college football on this channel year-round. Appreciate your support. Click that subscribe button. USC hosting Penn State. Another great helmet game. Feels like it should be a Rose Bowl from 1982 with Todd Blackledge and whoever, John Robinson, or who was the whatever coach of the USC Trojans at the time. This game's at the Coliseum. It is a Big Ten game. Penn State, the 4.5-point road favorite, the over-under set at 50.5. Look at this game. First off, USC, why are they not ranked? It's because they lost to Minnesota. And it was a weird game. We talked about this a lot on last week's show. We talked a lot about this on the Sunday show with the Alabama and Vandy game, where even when Alabama was down, you just kind of felt like they were going to come back and find a way to win. And that was just kind of how I felt about USC in this game. Is a game where, they jump out to a 7-3 lead. It's 10-10. They're up 17-10. Minnesota scores the touchdown late in the game to take it was just a strange game. And it was a game that I think it was a pseudo turning point for the entire season, because you can brush off the Michigan game a few weeks ago, couple tough plays, couple this, couple that. USC goes to Minnesota. Now you've lost back-to-back Big Ten road games to start your tenure. Now, I think there's people back again questioning Lincoln Riley. The Lincoln Riley roller coaster this year has been interesting to watch. He went from being the worst coach in the world, Paul Feinbaum was ready to replace him with Deion Sanders, to he's great again after he beats LSU, to he stinks again after Michigan, to he's okay again after Wisconsin. Now he's back to being terrible. Listen, this is a flawed team, but they can move the football. They can throw the football, certainly. And in the two wins the two losses that they have, they've outgained the opponent. By the way, it's worth noting with Minnesota. Like, Minnesota's actually a pretty legitimate defense here. You coming into this weekend, Minnesota obviously is on a bye, but Minnesota's the 6th ranked defense in all of college football. So, we want to minimize that loss. I'm not saying it was good, but it might not be quite as bad as we think. Penn State, other hand, very interesting team. First of all, the big story coming out of Penn State this week, James Franklin wants a new, I just yelled into the mic, I apologize, but James Franklin wants a new freaking airport in Happy Valley, okay? Did you see this story? He's basically just like, dude, we got to drive an hour just to get on a plane, just to this, just to that. He's like, we got to get ourselves an airport near this campus. But it shows you this is the new world of the Big Ten. By the way, I saw this stat as it pertained to the Oregon-Ohio State game. I didn't mention it. Obviously, I picked Ohio State to win that game. But it sounds like Big Ten teams are 1-8 outright in games where they have to travel 2 time zones in that game. So as an example, when Washington traveled to Rutgers, they ended up losing that game. When Michigan traveled to Washington, they lost that game. So that's kind of an interesting stat. And from Penn State's side of things, I'll just say it is going to be fascinating to just see who they are, right? Because, listen, my stance on Penn State is pretty clear. I don't love them. They win the games they're supposed to. They don't win the games they're supposed to late. They lose to Ohio State and Michigan consistently. It's just, I need to see something that proves to me that that's not who they are. Saw another stat on Penn State, by the way. How about this? Last 3 seasons, they have started 5-0 in each of those 3 seasons. Only 13-11 after those games. Now, to be fair to Penn State, one of those years, their starting quarterback got hurt, Sean Clifford. They kind of fell apart. Last year, they went 10-2, 11-3 with the 10-3 with the bowl game. But 10-2, 2 losses to Michigan and Ohio State. They've struggled against elite teams. Not saying USC is that, but this is kind of the game, right? You've done what you've done all September, all October. Now it's time to show, are you the team that you claim you are? Everybody keeps telling me that no team is in a more advantageous spot to make the playoff than Penn State, right? That was a big narrative in the preseason of, no team benefits from an expanded playoff more than Penn State. Ohio State, Michigan, doesn't matter if you finish in 3rd. Well, you still got to finish in 3rd in a much tougher league. You got to play USC this weekend. And I'll be honest, I'm just going to say it. I'm calling for the upset. I'm calling for USC to win outright. Also, certainly cover the 4.5 points in this game. And so when I look at this game, a couple things stand out. One, USC, I'm sorry. I know Lincoln Riley's an easy target. I know everybody hates Lincoln Riley, and he's the worst human being that's ever walked the face of the earth. I'm not excusing a loss to Minnesota, but at the same time, couple things. Those 2 losses, play away, 2 plays away from being a completely different game. I know you could say that about a lot of teams in a lot of games, but look at those losses. Against Michigan in that game, Michigan had 3 big runs. They couldn't do anything else. Miller Moss throws a pick 6, and Michigan still has to complete a 3rd and long and a 4th and 1 on the goal line to actually beat USC. USC stops either of those runs, they probably win that game. Last week against Minnesota, they lose that game, but they outgained Minnesota, 7 of 11 on 3rd downs, 6 yards per carry against one of the best rushing defenses in college football, and 3 turnovers cost them the game. Well, they're back at home. They are certainly more battle-tested. One thing, you can criticize USC all you want, but listen, this is a team that, again, Minnesota, I don't think people realize. Minnesota is a top 10 defense, okay? Michigan is struggling a little bit right now, but they're about a top 30 defense. Wisconsin, about a top 30 defense. Tell me who Penn State has played, okay? Specifically on the offensive side of the football. Now, I'm not saying this is peak Lincoln Riley with Kyler Murray where they're putting up 50 points a game, but here are Penn State's wins this season. West Virginia, Kent State, Illinois, UCLA, and Bowling Green. West Virginia is the best offense they played, 38. They're 38th in the country. Well, keep in mind, that was a rainy, stormy, lightning-delayed game with a lot of bad weather. Kent State, 134th in total offense in the country. That's dead last. Illinois, 100th in the country in total offense. UCLA, 127th in the country in total offense. And oh, by the way, Bowling Green is 67th in the country in total offense. And you couldn't get them off the field. They put up 27 points against you. So I look at USC, again, I think one of the reasons. Now, nobody has all the answers in picking games. If they did, everybody would be undefeated and Vegas casinos would be bankrupt, okay? But I think too often we react to the last thing that we saw and not the bigger picture. I think USC is probably somewhere between like the 12th and 20th best team in the country. Not excusing a loss to Minnesota, not excusing a loss to Michigan, not saying that those aren't games that they could have or maybe should have won. But we're all focused on, well, they just lost at Minnesota. Yeah, and Minnesota needed to convert a 4th down late in the game on the goal line to win the game. So I don't know why I'm yelling and screaming, but I'm fired up about this one. And by the way, Penn State, James Franklin, prove me wrong, bro. Like, prove to me that you can win a game that you're not supposed to. And I think it's just going to be an interesting kind of, what's the right word? A culture clash, really. Penn State, like, at some point, you're going to have to prove that you can't just rely on your defense in a big game, because that's been the problem with them against Michigan, against Ohio State. They want to win every game 10-3. Well, USC is going to put up points. Are you going to be able to move the ball against this improved USC defense? I like USC to win this game. I'm going to say 27-13. I think it's a big game. I think USC wins outright. I think they get the win.